Humans have had a close relationship with animals for thousands of years. Scientists agree the domestic dog has been a trusted pet for around 15,000 years. And cats became part of the household from 10,000 years ago. And now it's estimated there are at least 600 million pet cats in the world. Exotic pets have also been kept for thousands of years. It's well documented that the Egyptians kept baboons as pets, and exotic animals kept in the home feature in many ancient texts. In modern times, the keeping of exotic pets has increased. A staggering statistic is that there are more tigers in the U.S. alone than there are in the wild. Animal owners truly believe they are playing a role in preserving the numbers of exotic animals. But on the other side of the debate, there are those who believe it is a cruel practice to keep any animals in captivity. This series explores the issues from both sides, from those who know the dangers, but see the benefits, to others who condemn the keeping of exotic pets. Their stories follow. In Abney Park Cemetery, North London, there is an unusual gravesite, a sleeping lion, a memorial to Frank C. Bostock. Frank was a showman who toured with exotic animals throughout Europe. In 1893, he moved to America and connected the masses with these amazing creatures. He is credited as being the first person to bring a pet lion to the U.S. Frank was known to have been mauled several times, which is thought to have contributed to his early death in 1912 at the age of 46. Was this where the owning of great cats as pets began in the U.S. and continues to this day?
The Lion Week. And as you can see here, this little pet Squeaky the lion makes a wonderful house pet.
The danger factor is always there with these large feline pets, as this old clip shows. Watching it is a little unsettling, but it isn't enough to stop more and more people seeking the unusual as a pet.
Animals are family, and it doesn't matter if it's a tiny little house cat or, a lion or tiger or bear. You have that connection with animals regardless of size. When I was young, I used to think I could save the world. And I was always dragging home misfits, and I worked at a veterinary clinic for a while, and don't put the dog to sleep, I'll find him a home.
Jill Carnegie's passion to save animals has become her lifelong mission. But her focus is not just about rehoming the neighborhood dog. In the town of Sharon, Wisconsin, the Valley of the Kings Sanctuary is home to a large variety of exotic animals. Abused, abandoned, retired, and injured, these large pets aren't for the faint-hearted. And for Jill, having a rebellious streak has led her to this amazing work.
When I was a child, I was always dragging things home and getting into trouble. My mother hates animals. She's 96 years old. She's still alive. And we had many, many discussions about animals, and I ended up getting married young when I was 17 to basically get out of the house. And I married a guy because he had a horse, which is really stupid. But, and then we ended up here. I divorced him in '96 and then remarried Jim, who loves animals as much as I do. We've been married 20 years now.
Jill and Jim are dedicated to looking after the welfare of their animals. Sanctuaries are common in the U.S., so there's a need to rehome. In captivity, big cats have been known to attack humans with devastating results. This horrific scene is testament to what can go wrong. A man trying to feed a couple of circus animals finds out the hard way that a tiger is a predator and one that can strike at any time. The defense is a couple of wooden poles, but the man struggles to save his hand. From minor injuries to permanent disability and even death, it's never wise to assume a big cat is a tame animal, no matter where you might find it. In Jill's sanctuary, there's no crossing of the boundaries, even if one of their residents was once a family pet.
This is Janie. She's grumpy. She hasn't been here very long. She's from a lady in Texas who has cancer, and she couldn't care for her. She was a pet, and she actually adored the lady. She's still adjusting. It'll take her time. The interesting thing is I can come out and she's fine with me. I can give her treats and talk to her, and she rolls over, and I don't go in with her. I wouldn't trust her. She's actually a very sweet cat. She just doesn't like a lot of people. She feels threatened. And she's got to adjust living with a few girls down here, which she's not crazy about. So eventually she'll have a buddy when we get a male lion in. And then we do vasectomies because we don't believe in breeding. So she'll be happy. Callie, hi girl. This was someone's pet. They lived in Florida. She is about 17 years old, and she's been here ever since she's been about 5. She lived in their house till she was about 4 or 5 years old, and she had the run of their backyard. And then they had to move, and no place would allow them to have their lion. Hoovla, come on. Come on, there we go. What a good tiger. You're such a good tiger. He's one of the biggest tigers we have, but we have one that's even larger. And he's 17, so he's not a youngster by any stretch. But he's been here since he was 4 months old. He was somebody's pet in Big Bend, Wisconsin. They bought him illegally from a breeder in Arizona. And then they realized when he was about 4 months old that the furniture and the kids were not safe. And so they did the right thing and brought him out. And then they said, we will never get another exotic again. So thank God for that. He's probably at least, I would put him 1,100 pounds easily. Yeah, he's massive.
There is no doubt Kubla is one very large animal, and with that size comes a big appetite. Tigers rely primarily on sight and sound for hunting. They will see you long before you have any idea they've been sizing you up. A tiger can consume almost 100 pounds of meat at a time. Large prey are no barrier. Even if you've been working with your trained cats for decades, you can never trust a tiger. It only takes one shocking moment to change your life to near death, as this Spanish circus trainer found out during a performance. Kubla doesn't have to go on the prowl for anything but more affection. And with Jill around, that's a given. He's an absolute love bug. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. But you always have to remember that they're trained and never tamed. They are who they are, and even a good one can cause serious harm. So you just don't want to, especially the older I get, I guess I get smarter too. Yeah, we always take tons and tons of precautions, and in 44 years we've never had an injury, never had an escape, never had anything happen. Knock on wood. And everything that's come in as babies get huge like this, I think because we feed every day. We don't believe in fasting them, and they get an enormous amount of calcium and vitamins and absolutely everything that they need, where a lot of private people don't have a clue what the animals should get. We've gotten cougars in with rickets, others with broken bones, and just all kinds of horrible things.
So a zoo will take ground meat, put it on a little platter, slide it under and take it away. So they don't have anything to chew on, and then maybe one day they'll give them bones so they can chew on a bone. But the zoo cats that we've gotten in have had slab fractures, really bad teeth that our vets have had to put back together again. These guys, ones that have come in when they're young that we've raised, even when they're senior citizens and we knock them out, their teeth are absolutely pristine because they get everything that they need, the hide, the bone, just everything. Plus they get supplements.
Jill feels right at home with these enormous cats. These are her adored pets. But when the need arose, she took a big step out of her comfort zone to start welcoming large Syrian grizzlies to the sanctuary.
So gentle, yeah. Which at first I was like, grizzly bears? I don't think so. And when I saw them and how gentle they were, I'm like, okay, this could be doable.
Jill's not at ease with these enormous bears, but is growing to like having them around. However, choosing to hang out with these massive predators inside the cage, knowing they're capable of suddenly turning on anyone, isn't a choice for most of us. Is this bravery or a death wish? Bears are aggressive. Camping in their territory is a risk to you and your property. And yet, many people have these same bears living in their homes. Deaths from bear attacks are rare in the U.S. On average, 3 people per year are taken, which makes the odds of being killed very small. But does this risk increase with more exposure? While Jill devotes her life to caring for her pets, there also comes that heartbreaking time when you need to say goodbye.
We hold the record for the oldest living feline in the world, and that was Sammy. He lived to be 36 years old, a purebred Sumatran tiger. And he was a little butterball the day we put him to sleep, sadly, but his hips gave out. So when the quality of life is gone, then it's time for them. We cremate all of our big cats and our other animals. That way no one can dig them up 100 years from now and get them. I'm like King Tut with the grave, so. And this is Huggy. This is the one that I have to put to sleep, and it's really killing me. He's an old man. He's in multiple organ failure. But it's his time. He's 22 years old. It's heartbreaking, even though you know it's the right thing to do, you know. This time next week, he'll probably be passed on to Rainbow Bridge. Yeah, but I'm gonna miss him. I will absolutely miss him terribly. It's really hard. I have a lot of favorites that are buried here. I had lost my son in 1998 in a car accident, and he's buried here, and this is where Jim and I will be buried as well, because we want to be with those we love. I don't want to be in a human cemetery. It just doesn't feel right. I love the elderly, and I love the misfits. That's really where my heart is. And when a cat is old and senile, they forget they eat. So you feed them, and 10 minutes later, they're like, hello, I didn't eat today, and you got to give them some more, and that goes on all day.
Jill is a seasoned conservationist. Her motivation is about rescue.
It's so amazing. When they're rescued, they're completely different than one you've raised as a kid. They are so grateful. And the exotics are exactly the same way, because we loaded these animals up and they know they're going to a better place instantly.
This certainly is a better place with superior conditions than where these animals have come from. For Lena and her mate Thina, their lives have improved remarkably.
And we have a little crippled tiger here. This is one of my favorites. This is Lena. She came out of the same seizure in Indiana, and the SWAT team was there. They had all their long guns, and it was pretty scary. Here she comes. There she comes. And as you can see, her knees are really bad. Hi. The way she walks. Hi, little pumpkin. Hi, how are you? This cat and this other cat over here, they lived in circus roll crates. 6 foot by 4 foot, maybe 5 foot, their entire lives. They were in a dark barn, no light. We had to use bolt cutters to open all the locks because it had been ever since they were just prisoners in those little areas. When Lena came, she would sit and she could kind of paddle around like this on her feet, and then she'd do this, like stargazing. And now, as you can see, she can run and she can play. And our vet is amazed that she gets around as well as she did because it was not expected at all. But she probably will never live to see old age because of her handicap. But for the time that we have with her, you know, we'll do anything and everything for her. But this owner that owned this cat, it was horrific. He was an older circus mentality kind of person, and then once a year he'd roll the wagons out for the neighborhood kids to see and then roll them back into their dark barn. He would take a stick and just scoop the poop out and all over the floor in there. It was awful. It's probably one of the worst seizures that we've ever been on. It was absolutely horrific. This is the other one that came with Lena that lived in a circus roll crate. This is Stina. She was very young to begin with when we got her. She's about 18 months old. So she wasn't left in that condition. So like this one was for 6 years to become neurotic. But most of the neurotic behaviors is gone now, which is great. But she doesn't seem to have been scarred at all as far as, you know, being abused like that. She's really got a cute personality. She's very outgoing. She does have broken teeth from grabbing the bars where she lived. And she was really thin when she came. He's so sweet. But even though he's got hybrid in him, you can't trust them. They have a switch because they've got the wolf in them. But he's a very sweet boy. He loves his attention. He loves his cuddles. Yeah, you're a good boy. We lost his sister to cancer when she was 3. Hi, Milo. I think he's 8 or 9. And it's very interesting because we have a couple volunteers that he hates. And he will actually charge the fence to eat them. Yes, it's amazing. I mean, like, he knows you guys are all animal people. What a good boy.
Like many homes, there's often a need for renovations, and the Valley of the Kings Sanctuary is no different. Nestled on 10 acres of farmland, the sanctuary was established more than 30 years ago. And as more funding comes through, the better the conditions become for these majestic creatures.
If every sanctuary in America did not have big cats and was empty and they had a place to go, that would be my dream. I would tell you, if we could buy the property that surrounds us, I would give them, if we had the money, 2, 3, 4, 5 acre pens. That would be the ultimate. It'd be awesome. The interesting thing is when they come from an area that they have a small pen and you give them a larger pen, they're so happy and content with what they have because they've never had a large area. The one lion that was kept in a circus roll crate her entire life, we just moved her to the big area up in the compound, and she didn't know what to do. She would stay in the small area and she would kind of look around. She wouldn't play with her toys. She wouldn't roar or vocalize. And it took her about 2 weeks to figure out, okay, so I can go over here, and oh my gosh, I can go over there too, and oh, there's a toy, and now she's playing and acting like a normal animal. So it's kind of like you have to get inside of their heads to kind of rearrange their thinking that, okay, it's okay to have that much room.
Jill and her husband are very committed to ensuring their beautiful animals have a great second chance to a much improved life.
You come to the point you can't save them all. It's not humanly possible. But if everybody took care of their own backyard and did what they could, that the world would truly be a better place. So everyone who comes through our gates, we make a lifetime commitment to, and they're here forever, through thick and thin and illness and whatever. And I know that the time that we need to let them go, that they had a good life for the time that they had with us.
Well, yeah, I get bitten every day. Well, probably not every day, but once a week. And that's because I breed pythons, I breed young snakes that are harmless. Pythons don't have any venom. Some snakes may be technically venomous, but not that bad. So I've had a few bites I don't count. If you get to the pointy end, I've had 4 intensive care visits. So 4 times the word's been a bit touch and go. Every time was something I did wrong, yes. And when you do something over and over, sometimes it's complacency sets in.
Just how close would you get to a snake? To feel the snake's body slithering against your skin. Even experienced snake handlers, like this one in Cyprus, who removed the snake from the neighbor's backyard, can run into a problem.
Yes?
Yes. She started to jump because she had smoky.
The adrenaline factor is huge, but the consequences can make for a very bad day. However, when you're performing for a crowd, it's all about the showmanship.
This one here is a tiger snake and potentially very, very lethal if it bit you. Because this one's captive bred and it's used to me and I've never given it any reason to bite me. Snakes aren't designed just to bite for no reason. If it did, it would be, yeah, a bad day. It's potentially one of the most lethal land snakes in the world. He won't just bite you. This is the misconception. He doesn't want to bite you to get away. So often you won't get a warning. You'll hear a rustle in the bush and that's him already getting away. 80% of our hospitalised bites, people trying to catch and kill the snake. It's simple. People think they're dangerous and because they've got to deal with this dangerous animal and they deal with it by getting the shovel, trying to kill it, and then they realise how quick and agile these animals are when it's too late.
Australian Gary Davies has had a fascination with snakes since he was 5 years old. He knew he wanted to be a snake man. Over the years, he gathered a collection of the most venomous, including the tiger snake, king brown, and death adder. Add to that a few different species of pythons and lizards, and you've got a rather uncommon assortment of pets. For Gary, this passion for reptiles has led to a career working with snakes and educating the public. But quite frankly, it seems Gary prefers snakes to humans.
Look, honestly, what a man and his snake do in the privacy of their own snake shed is a different story. But in public, I don't go handling snakes in order like this. It's just to show you that they are not, you know, red-hot killers that are out to get us. Naturally, I'm not his prey. Tiger snakes are far from violent or aggressive animals. In fact, if you're going to learn snakes, tiger snakes and king browns are one of the most quietest, easily chilled snakes of the venomous snakes there are.
If you're new to snakes, perhaps starting with a couple of Australia's most venomous isn't for the beginner. They may be laid back and chilled out, but you don't want to be surprising them.
You keep within boundaries. I'm not doing anything to cause this snake to actually bite me. And he is getting close to full grown now. But it's not about size. Venom, it doesn't come down to size with venom. You know, you need a mil of venom. It doesn't matter how big the snake is. So it's not like, oh, he's too big to handle. No, that one there it's going to give you, you know, a bad day as bad as anything on the planet can, as far as venom, you know. I don't recommend it as a pet. If you want to like snakes, there's a whole lot of less toxic snakes, you know, safer snakes to keep. But if tiger snakes are your thing and you've got to that stage, then great, you know, I'm all for it. But I just don't suggest it for someone thinking about a pet snake. No, don't think of a tiger snake. Don't think of a venomous snake. I think keeping a venomous snake is something you evolve to and you get to rather than trying to aspire to.
If you're thinking a tiger snake might be off the pet list, after all, it is one of the top 3 most venomous land snakes in Australia, then you may be interested in the king brown. It comes in much lower on the danger scale, at around number 6.
This is a king brown. Particularly huge for a king brown.
Might not be able to hold up. But it is a venomous snake that's very, very active.
Yeah, he's going to be a lot more active. He wasn't captive bred. He was actually wild caught under licence. But he has got used to me and that I don't hurt him, so he's in the process of calming down very well. But it is a process thing where this one I won't give the same sort of luxuries as I would that tiger snake. It's just understanding your own animal again. He can turn around and bite. But he's slowly learning since he's been caught that, oh, well, this guy's not too bad.
If you're a snake in captivity, you don't get to choose your owner. But Gary is a role model for responsible pet ownership.
For one, he's a reptile feeder, so he'll feed on other snakes. He's pretty good at catching and killing, overpowering even death adders, other venomous snakes. So I'd never keep him together with another snake, especially if he's hungry.
Great tip for the uninitiated. It pays to do your research. Snake ownership is serious business. There's a lot to learn in order to stay safe.
The king brown is the largest member of the black snake family, so he's not actually a brown snake. But because he's often brown in colour, they've called him the king brown. The other name is mulga snake, which is probably a better name. If you got bitten by this, you'd need black snake anti-venom, not brown snake. They're very widespread, so they're found right throughout the whole of Australia, except for the very southeast and the very southwest. Now, a big one of these can push 3 metres, and that's probably the Kimberley forms. The ones in the Kimberley are the biggest. And you grab one of them by the tail in the wild, you know you've got a snake when he's 3 metres long. A snake that big and with the name King Brown, that's where he gets these reputation from him. Everything that happens, people talk about, oh, do you hear about the King Brown? And these are stories that have been exaggerated because it sounds such an aggressive animal, it sounds so big. Yes, it's a perception of deadliness. It can be dangerous, but again, I think we carry the legends a lot more than the actual reality deserves. If they're not natural predators, they're going to bite out of fear. Now, you can break down that fear. They're not scared of you so much. There's no reason for them just to bite randomly.
Fear is quite possibly the #1 reason why you would be bitten. If you see a snake sliding through the bush or accidentally step on one, there's a really good chance you're going to panic and perhaps end up in the hospital. Even with all of Gary's experience, he's admitted to a few close calls.
I've been handling venomous snakes for well over 25 years. Anytime you get bitten, it's because you've crossed a line. You've been complacent. And hopefully that brings you down to earth and you see your mistake, or else you're just going to make it again. There's always an adrenaline rush when, like you said, you know it can go wrong in a second. You've got to be dead if you don't get adrenaline out of that. You hold a tiger snake like this, I mean, you've got to be dead if you don't get some sort of adrenaline rush. But that's not the right reason to keep them. To keep them for the beauty of the animal. You're working with these animals, you've got to have the understanding there's certain lines you don't cross. You've got to respect that potential risk. There has to be a knowledge of it and an understanding that if I make a mistake here, this is going to end badly for me. There's a hot zone. So while you're in that hot zone, where you're in a hot zone, that's where the potential is. You stay out of that and you're quite, you know, he's not lurking, waiting for you. Well, not if you're a good keeper. If you lose them around the house and they're just lurking somewhere you don't know, but a good keeper with snakes, he's got an enclosure where he lives and, you know when it's, you're in a dangerous position, and that's when you've got to be switched on.
Owning any pet that is considered a little unusual often comes with risks that can be fatal. But it can be an adventure for the seasoned, unusual pet lover.
You can potentially keep one as a pet, but you have to show the authorities, take the right steps before they deem that you're safe enough to keep one. I would never suggest anyone keeping king browns or tiger snakes unless they've kept snakes for a long time and they actually know quite a bit about venomous snakes. You can only really learn that by experience. But the adventure side is getting out there in the scrub and actually finding these animals, and that's my passion, finding king browns in the field, in the wild, and watching what they do. And that's where our learning comes from, you know. So I guess that's my passion, but everyone's different.
If you're convinced you're ready to proudly own a pet snake, then moving to a non-venomous variety is a great place to start. Although they can still be a bit of a handful. Meet Bob.
He's an older python. His name's Bob, but I've had him about 14 years from birth. He's been around people his whole life. He works with kids and in crowds, and often if I'm standing close to someone who's holding him, he will come over to me. He doesn't love me. I have no doubt he doesn't love me and has an affection for me, but I'm a familiar scent to him, just like if he had a hollow log in the wild that's a familiar place. It's a familiar scent.
Bob is likely to reach a maximum length of 4.5 to 5 meters. But olive pythons have been known to get up to 6.5 meters or more. That's a lot of snake to keep your eye on.
Me and Bob, often there's things that happen around the house that people would think strange. I'm making a sandwich with him around my neck. Seems strange to some people, I guess. It's quite normal around my house. I guess sometimes people think of pets as something that you can cuddle and grab hold of. Now, that, to me, not necessarily true. You know, you don't have to pat an animal. You can still have a pet and just enjoy it for what it is. And I think that maybe that's a line that some people call some things a pet because they can cuddle it at night and give it a hug. Some animals don't necessarily want to be hugged. But does that make them not a pet? If you're looking after them, you keep an animal in captivity and you give it all its needs and you look after it and it's a healthy animal and you get enjoyment out of it, then to me that's a pet. You've got to have respect, and they can be dangerous, but there's so many things in this world that can be dangerous, you know? Some people get married, God, you know, that's danger there. You know, each to their own, really. Some people think that reptiles are easy, especially snakes, easy pets to keep, and I don't like that attitude, because you think you're going to get a pet because it's easy to keep, then that's probably the wrong reason to get them. They can be easy once you understand their needs, but sometimes their needs aren't as simple as people think. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you just keep them warm. Well, keeping them warm, you can kill them by overheating them. I do what I love. Since I was 5 years old, I loved snakes, so if I could turn my life into snakes, that's what I did. But again, it comes down to some people keep it just for their own ego, especially when it comes down to, well, predator pets or things that are potentially dangerous. Often the person's keeping it just to say, look at me, you know, and I think that's the wrong sort of person, and often they're the ones that make mistakes. And in this game, the problem becomes ours because someone keeps things for a wrong reason. If they get bitten by a tiger snake, they make the news. And there's knee-jerk reactions that come to the rest of the hobby. Everyone that keeps these animals has to get affected by the weakest few. So to me, I always believe that people, if they want to keep venomous snakes particularly, as long as they know what they're doing and they are doing it for the right reasons, not just to be tough or look at me, because that's just going to end wrong sooner or later.
People see these cats on Disney films, you know, oh, they all look all friendly and I want one of those. And what happens? They get one and oh dear, it attacks me. It's destroyed my house. Oh, I don't want it anymore. That's the pet side. But then a number of these private breeders are doing the job properly.
Dr. Terry Moore knows cats. In fact, he loves cats so much, he has devoted his life to ensuring the survival of a wide number of species. But don't be fooled by the fact that Terry is in the enclosure with this Temix golden cat. These cats are quick and can attack. However, in the right hands, they can be mostly controlled.
And then there's the African golden cat, which is much more orange than this. Keeping cats in captivity, there's the pluses and the minuses. If they're doing it properly, and there are a lot of private breeders in this country that we work with, A lot of the private breeders work with zoos and are providing livestock for show in zoos so that people can come along and just understand why we need to protect them. But then you've got to differentiate between the people who look after the animals properly and the ones who just want them for status. You know, I've got this cat. Having one as a pet, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work, because very few of these cats are friendly enough to be classed as a pet.
These cats are all in good hands at the Cat Survival Trust. While the trust is focused on long-term conservation of cats in the wild, this 12-acre property at Harfordshire, England, is a haven for unwanted and surplus wild cats from zoos and other collections where cats have proven to be too much of a handful.
When I was studying at London University back in the 60s, I was actually working part of the time for my uncle's firm in aviation insurance to pay my way. And one day I went into Harrods, and there was a South American margay for sale for £300, and I thought about this. I thought, that's a nice cat, and for the wrong reason, to have it as a pet. And I went away and got the money together, and 3 weeks later went back to buy it, but unfortunately Lady Fisher of Kilwardstone Wildlife Park beat me to it. But between 66, which is when I saw this cat, and 75, I accumulated so many books about wild cats and realised that, you know, there were 37 species of cat, not just your lions and tigers, but, you know, such amazing cats as pampas cat and Andean mountain cat and sand cat and eremite cat and so on, which I'd never heard of. I mean, they weren't in the school curriculum. So I really got into this and felt, well, something ought to be done. And realised very quickly, after a few years, that sadly there wasn't a rescue operation in England to take surplus and unwanted cats. So a group of us got together, and in 75 we formed the charity, basically to look after unwanted and confiscated cats from illegal collections. He's getting a bit heavy to hold, and you've got to be careful when you're holding him. It's uncomfortable for him. The Eurasian lynx is an interesting one. The Scandinavian, there are about 2,000-3,000 left. The Central European are 200 or 300, and the Italian down to about 40. This is a Central European, so with 200 or 300 left is not good. He's only really friendly with 4 of us. We used to allow people in with him, but not anymore. He picks up on the slightest element of fear and get quite aggressive.
Working with these animals requires a lot of knowledge on what makes them tick.
We wanted to study cats in the wild. We wanted to find some ways of perhaps preserving cats in the wild, keeping them safe in the wild. We wanted to provide an educational service. The first 30 years were pretty difficult, although in '92 we did manage to buy 10,000 acres of virgin forest in northeast Argentina with 5 species of cat living free in their own environment. And in future we want to buy more natural habitat, because keeping animals in their own environment is by far the most economic, most ethical way. And of course, to save cats, you've got to have that entire ecosystem intact. Any part of that food chain is out and the cats are going to die.
There is no doubt the work that Terry and his team of volunteers do is vital to the survival of many cat species. The jaguar is endangered, and the work at the Cat Survival Trust is about helping animals like Athena, affectionately known as Jags. But we all know looks can be deceiving.
Jaguars are only found in South and Central America. They're quite different from the leopards. They're much bigger, much chunkier, and much more dangerous. They'll take crocodiles out of the rivers and just crunch them. Give her a whole deer and there is nothing left. I mean, she will eat the skull, the hooves, absolutely everything. I go in with all the cats here with the exception of the jaguar and the amio leopards, because She was already an adult when she came. I didn't have the chance to build a relationship with her, and she wouldn't know her own strength. She'd want to play hard.
The unpredictability of a pet in captivity is never something to be ignored.
Out of all the cats we keep here, she's probably the most dangerous. Cats are potentially dangerous and not ideal as pets in any way.
Big cats have an enormous appeal as a pet, particularly when they're young. They are playful and often have many of the enduring characteristics of a domestic cat. However, when you think what a domestic cat can do to a small mouse, you'd have to be mindful that the time may come where you could end up being the big cat's human mouse to torment and tease until your last breath is taken. Perhaps these cats are far more spectacular in the wild than in your backyard. But for these cats to roam free, a lot of work needs to be done.
Keeping cats in captivity is a sort of stopgap. Let's face it, most of the wild places where you find cats are being wiped out. There's just too many humans. We need oil, we need minerals, we need metals, we're destroying the habitat. And so every species is seeing falling numbers every year. The way it's going, we could lose every single species, not only of cats, but everything else.
Research and breeding programs are vital to save these animals.
Zoos have played a major part in education, allowing people to understand why animals are important. There are some very good zoos who do a lot of conservation work. You know, they breed certain species in captivity and then release them back into the wild. For the good zoos that have lots of information, lots of placards and posters all about why we have to save animals, that's great. But I think what we have to do is look really seriously at the zoos that are underfunded, that aren't looking after the animals properly, and they should be closed. So the question is, in the future, so many of these cats that have many subspecies, how relevant is it to say, right, let's save all of the different subspecies? Pumas, they're originally, they thought to be 29 subspecies. So when you've got a species like the puma, what you find is that those that are living near the equator are much smaller. Those living away from the equator are much bigger and much chunkier, and their fur is much thicker. Sadly, because jaguar need much stronger enclosures, this is a much thicker wire than you would keep any of the other cats that we have in. Zoos can't generally afford to build a huge enclosure like this with this extra cost added to the wire. She's now unfortunately too old to breed, and because the jaguar stud book have said, look, if we breed a load, where are we going to put them? Because zoos can't afford to build this sort of enclosure anymore. So there is a restriction on breeding. Generally speaking, stud books are there to make sure that we don't get surpluses in official collections. And that's very sensible with the jaguar, because there's a fair number left in the wild, although as they destroy more and more forest, we're losing habitat at such an amazing rate. And ultimately, some of the subspecies could disappear.
Whether you're looking at these cats thinking, I want one as a lovable, purring pet, or if you feel you should get on board to help save many species of big cats, it's clear the survival of these incredible animals is up to the human race. We've hunted to the point of extinction. We've destroyed habitats, but we can still make a difference.
My number 2 is more than capable of taking over. We have a number of volunteers who potentially could take over in future times. And we're very lucky. We've had a lot of volunteers in the past who are emailing me quite frequently. Are we in a position to have them back? They don't need much money. They just need enough for food and clothing and bits and pieces. We're at a situation now where we know a number of our supporters have left quite substantial sums to the charity, not only to keep it going, but also to buy more natural habitat in countries around the world. So I feel pretty happy about the current situation with the Trust. We don't have any debt here. The property is effectively owned by the charity now. I don't have any fears in the future. Too many animal collections don't think ahead. And that is one problem with people who keep exotic cats as pets. What is going to happen when they die? What is going to happen when they can't look after them anymore? But with the huge number of people who keep private collections of all sorts of animals, they really need to think this through, because the only option is to put them down. And then what was the point of having them in the first place? People who keep these animals, a lot of them will have friends and relatives come and see the cats, will learn more about why the cat is endangered, and that will all help towards people in the future providing funding for new projects, particularly in the wild. And certainly we found by having cats here that when we bought our 10,000 acres of forest in Argentina, people were very happy to support it because they saw the cat and they saw why we wanted to save the cat in its own habitat.
Humans have had a close relationship with animals for thousands of years. Scientists agree the domestic dog has been a trusted pet for around 15,000 years. And cats became part of the household from 10,000 years ago. And now it's estimated there are at least 600 million pet cats in the world. Exotic pets have also been kept for thousands of years. It's well documented that the Egyptians kept baboons as pets, and exotic animals kept in the home feature in many ancient texts. In modern times, the keeping of exotic pets has increased. A staggering statistic is that there are more tigers in the US alone than there are in the wild. Animal owners truly believe they are playing a role in preserving the numbers of exotic animals. But on the other side of the debate, there are those who believe it is a cruel practice to keep any animals in captivity. This series explores the issues from both sides, from those who know the dangers, but see the benefits, to others who condemn the keeping of exotic pets. Their stories follow. Mark Colhorst knows his animals. Owner of the traveling zoo, Mark's Ark, and with over 40 species living on his property, he really is a modern-day Noah. From horses to ducks, rabbits to frogs, Mark is an expert on all things cute and cuddly. But Mark also has a curiosity for the dangerous side of animal handling. His pride and joy are some of the world's most hostile predators.
I'm going to be getting out Ivy. Ivy is the larger of my two alligators. Really, quite honestly, not knowing what her type of temperament is, and she's quite different than any others that I've ever had. She is not friendly. This is not a normal pet. You guys might want to stand back because she's going to get an avalanche of water. And the way she's presenting right here, she can take a hold of this and bust it easily. I go through a lot of these. You might ask why I do this. And when she is taped, she calms right down. She kind of knows this is a job. What I'm trying to do is get her tail so that I have control. There we go. That's really good. And then I can get her from behind. She is not happy. This is actually easier than it usually goes with her. So once I control her tail, and I've got the back of her head, then I can just press her firmly, but not harming her, down, and then her bite power is very powerful on the way down, but not up. Electrical tape only will tape against itself and not on her, so it doesn't pull her skin. She can breathe perfectly fine. And once I have her subdued like this, she can't bite, and she's really of no danger unless she decides she wanted to use her tail. I would feel completely confident in letting a very small child hold her now. And a lot of people are worried about the claws. The nails, they're not very sharp actually, and they really don't serve a whole lot of purpose. They do dig in the mud.
At 4 years old, Ivy's still relatively small, but Mark knows the dangers she will pose once she reaches adulthood. It is likely she will grow to 9 feet long and weigh up to 250 pounds. Once she reaches 5 feet, she will be classified as a Class 3 wild animal, and Mark will need to obtain a permit to keep her.
Alligators are probably, in my opinion, one of the smarter reptiles. They definitely have anger. She has almost got my fingers. She has got me across the back with her tail. Even for this size, it would feel like somebody taking a very broad belt across your back and just drive it right back.
Exclusively found across America's southeast, alligators are some of the most menacing predators in the United States. Growing up to 15 feet and reaching 1,000 pounds, this is not a creature you want to run into unprepared.
I've never had dogs or cats when I was a kid. My parents were very tolerant, and I always had exotics. One of my first pets was a spectacled caiman. It was nasty, evil. I really liked it. My dad enjoyed it too. They're fascinating. They're smart, strong. This type of animal's been around longer than dinosaurs. It's a tricky thing to call this a pet. I've known people that have had 12-foot alligators literally in their basement in the large city of Fort Wayne near here with their toddler child that jumps on its back and played with it and pet it. And the animal had free reign of the basement and a pond, a pool. Now that's a bit extreme for me. That won't ever happen. My child never goes near this animal unless it's in my hands and it's secured. This animal can be dangerous.
Encounters between humans and alligators are on the increase in the United States. Worldwide, it's estimated that 1,000 people die every year as a result of crocodilian attacks.
I have seen her take raw chicken legs and take that bone and just crunch it in half. And I've been bitten by another alligator before, and I thought I was going to lose my thumb. It was an alligator that was about a foot longer than this that I had. And I was in a hurry and a rush to go to a show. And even though he didn't have a temperament like this, he didn't like that hurried pace. He got a hold of my thumb, and the next thing I thought was, there goes my thumb. And he pressed down and bit down so hard, it felt like, I can't imagine the pressure. I thought my thumb was gone.
Alligators' teeth break off easily, and Mark's attack left him with a tooth lodged in his hand. They have the strongest bite pressure relative to size of any crocodilian, and Mark was lucky to escape further harm while at the mercy of this wild creature.
A full-size alligator can break the femur of a cow. It's substantial. It's incredibly strong. People buy them as a novelty. These are people that they decide they want to get a pet without ever having experience with any kind of exotic animals. They buy it, it's dangerous. They thought it was a novelty. They thought it was going to be cool. It was going to be really neat. And they learn that, you know, it's not a pet. That being said, I know my animals. I use these animals a lot for 11 years. This is a safe animal that I would never, ever, by any circumstances, ever let anybody get injured.
While Mark is highly conscientious of his animals, unfortunately, the same cannot be said for all exotic pet owners. Juan Stewart is the Chief Veterinary Officer and National Director of American Humane Hollywood. Juan has spent many years working in animal shelters and is a strong advocate for the welfare and protection of both domesticated and wild animals.
These reptiles, these birds, these small exotics, they require so much expertise, it would blow your mind. You get a small boa at your pet store and it's all of 18 inches. Well, one day that thing, if you feed it right and take care of it, it's gonna be, 8, 10, 15 feet potentially, and then what do? I mean, they get discarded. And that's not fair for the animal. They can become wild, vicious, dangerous animals.
Years spent dealing with these crocodilians means Mark has experienced firsthand the wild nature of these highly powerful animals.
Absolutely, this is a predator. You would not believe what this thing is capable of when it eats. I prefer to feed dead food when there's a situation where I have to feed live. 180 degrees different in their behavior. They are unbelievably fast, unbelievably violent. When you hear them, killing their prey, and you hear the bones crunch, there's no doubt about it. You just hear it. It's and they want to kill it as quick as possible. They're very efficient, very efficient.
When dealing with an alligator, as with any wild predator, caution is key. Returning the alligator to its cage can be a particularly difficult task, and Mark approaches it with precision and care.
The power is in her hip and her tail. So between my legs here, it's the best way I found to do it. And then I have to hold her very securely because she'll do that. And so she knows she's getting put away, and I've got to be very quick and careful with her because sometimes she'll come back at me. She's got a posture right now that's an aggressive posture. She's checking things out. She's kind of curious. Yeah, she's okay now. She's calmed down. She's gonna probably just go right back up on her platform. She knows everything's done.
Like many exotic enthusiasts, one predator is not enough to satisfy Mark's desire for the dangerous and mysterious.
This is a Colombian red-tailed boa. She's about 7, 8 years old. Her name is Rocky Balboa. They can vary a lot in their color. She has bronze. This is one of South America's largest snakes, the green anaconda being the bigger.
As an arboreal snake, Colombian red-tailed boas are natively found living in the treetops. They have the fastest strike of any snake and can easily catch monkeys and birds out of trees.
She's almost 8 feet long. She's strong enough that she could constrict enough to keep my chest from expanding to take in breath. So it's a very, very powerful snake.
Even as a trained animal handler, Mark is not immune to the power of these highly dangerous snakes. Caught alone and unaware, he experienced their predatory nature and powerful grasp.
I have had incidents before. When I was a zookeeper, I had a much larger one than this that didn't want to go back in its cage. And the snake did not want to let me go. It did not want to go back in the cage. And I struggled with the snake for well over an hour. I could not get to my radio. I was able to get the upper hand on it. I think I just literally had more energy than it did. And I was able to literally take it off like a pair of pants and slide it down. But when I was done, I can't remember, but only a few other times where I was so exhausted in my life. These are the strongest animals, and their musculature and the way they hold on is different than anything else. I've been bitten by large snakes like this before, and they're so fast that you don't even realize that you're bitten at first because it's so quick that even your nerve endings don't fire right. Honestly, you think, was I just bitten? And then you realize that you've got 60, 70 tooth marks in your arm from a snake like this, and it's a ½ inch deep. It bleeds for quite a long time before your blood clots, and it does hurt. Imagine having 60 hypodermics all in one short, small area. This is not a domesticated or tame animal. You never know when you're gonna have a bad day with that animal. You just have to know the animal. I can kind of tell with my animals when they're not feeling good or anything. She's doing fine. She's having a great time. If she were not, she would be closed up and tight.
Perhaps the most widely feared of Mark's collection is his tarantula. While its venom won't kill you, the tarantula's razor-sharp fangs and large hairy body make it infamous around the world.
I don't know that I'm gonna be holding her. She just bit into this, and let me tell you what, it was quite something. She just dug her fangs right in that wood. I've held her before, but boy, she just drove them right in. This is a Chilean rose hair tarantula, a very common tarantula available in pet stores. They typically have a reputation as being a really calm spider. This is a female. Females can live a lot longer than males, up to 30 years. Males are short, 7 to 9 years. And I've never been bitten by a tarantula. Don't ever want to. She has half-inch fangs. The venom, though, is described as being relatively benign. The bite is what hurts. I mean, having half-inch fangs, 2 of them. And spiders are really soft. But what they do when they bite is they grab really powerful, and they bite and let go. That powerful grab is tremendous. Probably the snake and the spiders are the most fearful animals that I have, that I show. I am not a cat person, a wild cat person, small or large cat, and I'm not a primate person. I am completely against those type of animals. Big cats, primates, they're too smart for their own good, and they're dealing with an animal that matures like a human being, except they're a wild animal. And so when something turns 15 and their testosterone blooms 4 times greater than a human being in an animal that's only 30 or 40 pounds, and you yank the chain around the neck of that animal one too many times, and that animal wants to be dominant in a troop, you're in trouble. I worked with primates too long, and they definitely are not a pet. This is something you can control, you can take care of. Primates are not something for everybody, for anybody. Now, normally I would handle spiders a lot easier, more comfortable in this, but she's, like I said, I'm a little more unfamiliar with her. This is not something I've done many times with her. These aren't for everybody, no, no, definitely not.
I can go in the cage with all the animals out here. The question is, can I come back out of the cage?
Whoa, whoa.
When driving through rural Indiana, there are many sounds you would expect to hear. What may surprise you is the roar of a mighty tiger. Opened in 1991 by Indiana local Joe Taft, the Exotic Feline Rescue Center is a refuge for the abandoned and the abused. Home to over 200 exotic cats across 9 different species. Joe's long-held interest in exotic cats began in his youth.
I started with cats in the mid-'60s. I bought an ocelot as a pet for absolutely no good reason. After the ocelot, I had a leopard that I lived with for 19 years, and I lived with her. I mean, she was a pet. She had a big outside enclosure, but she had 3 rooms in the house, and she had the run of my house most of the time. She slept in my bed at night her whole life. And during the winter, she was under the covers with her head out in the pillow. During the summer, she was over on the couch.
Joe's attitude towards pet ownership changed after witnessing the mistreatment many of these creatures face in captivity.
What we do here puts us in contact with the 98% of the people who have these animals who shouldn't. And very seldom are we in contact with those 2% or maybe even 1% of people who have them that do a good job.
In the United States, laws concerning exotic pet ownership are handled at a state level. Indiana laws are considered relatively lenient compared to other states, requiring little more than a permit for exotic pet ownership. Despite this, many owners don't bother with a permit, instead purchasing animals illegally from breeders online.
You could find these animals on the internet, and you could get them for $500 or $1,000. And there wasn't much regulation about their interstate movement. Now there are new federal laws in effect that clamp down on the interstate movement of big cats in the pet market. Unfortunately, a USDA permit is easy to come by, and if you have a USDA permit, then you can move the cats back and forth across state lines. On the other hand, there cannot be any money involved in those movements. And frankly, you know that most of the exchanges involving these animals, there is money involved.
All of the cats at the center are rescues, arriving from zoos, circuses, breeders, and pet owners around the country. Joe has made it his mission to rescue ill-treated felines and educate the public about these beautiful and mysterious animals.
A lot of these cats come here poorly nourished. You get an animal like this in a little cage and upset, and he snaps at something, they'll break their teeth off. So cats would come to us with big grooves cut in their teeth right at the base, and then it wouldn't take a lot of impact with something just to snap those teeth off. Although I've certainly seen upset tigers hit steel bars and teeth just break.
Many of Joe's rescues arrive in cages not suitable for their size. With over 25 years on the job, Joe has seen firsthand how mistreatment can have long-term physical and psychological effects on these majestic creatures.
These were circus lions. When the guy that owned these retired from the circus, he wheeled 9 big cats into his barn in circus wheel cages, and that's where they spent the next 10 years. 6 years into that, he bought another tiger and put her in a 5x7 cage, and she lived in that for 4 years in that barn. Finally, the USDA decided that it was time to quit patting this guy in the head, and they called me one morning and said, "We have 10 big cats up here. We want you to take 8 of them and crate the other 2 for another facility." We did it the next day in a blizzard, 2.5 feet of snow. These guys could barely walk when they got here. They were here for a month before they first tried to run, and then they just fell over. The guy that had these lions certainly didn't give a damn about them. But they're doing much better now.
It's no fault of Joe's that some of his animals arrive displaying the physical scars of previous neglect.
Zozo. She walks in a circle because for 4 years she was in a cage that was 5 foot by 7 foot. And she didn't have the ability to walk anywhere else.
Years of mistreatment can also have significant behavioral effects on the predator, with many of the felines arriving depressed, anxious, and overly aggressive.
I don't do things that would make me afraid. You know, after working with big cats for over 50 years, I know the things that people do that are scary. And one of my serious goals is to be able to do this again tomorrow. So you can't do that if they hurt you. Huh, come here. Hi. I mean, she's as sweet as can be, but she is full of energy, and she would certainly break me.
Even with the protection of a fence, Joe knows never to let your guard down around these vicious predators, especially when they're hungry.
The oldest tiger that's ever been here was 26 when she died. And sometimes we blame that on what she ate before she came here, which was a 17-year-old girl. Court documents described the tigers as, quote, extraordinarily hungry, unquote. We didn't get them for 2 years after the incident, and they were still extraordinarily hungry. They were all part of a traveling animal show, and the guy had jury-rigged some cages in a barn so he could go out and party for the winter, and left them in the care of a young girl who did not have a reliable source of food, and they hadn't been fed at all for 4 days. And she went in the barn and took her teenage friend in with her. But the court transcripts say that the keeper girl, who didn't have the experience to be a keeper to begin with, went up to the cage where these hungry tigers were with a hose to give them water, turned her back to talk to her friend, and you saw what happened when I turned my back on. Only these guys were hungry. And the tigers reached out and grabbed her and pulled her back to the fence. And her teenage friend ran up to try and save her. And they grabbed her friend's arm and pulled it off and ran off and ate it. And the girl died on the floor.
Sadly, this shocking attack is not an isolated incident. Since 1990, more than 300 dangerous events involving big cats have occurred, resulting in the deaths of 4 children and 16 adults. The staff at the rescue center are highly trained and well aware of the risks associated with working with such a powerful animal. Regardless of the situation, these are dangerous predators.
I wouldn't want to go in there and let her sit in my lap. She would definitely take your fingers off as a food source. You can see she's not interested in that much anymore. Where did you get that big belly? You're not a skinny little girl anymore, are you? No.
Since opening the rescue center, Joe and his team have saved countless big cats from all around the country and have had their fair share of close calls. Bruises, scratches, and broken bones are all part of the job when working with some of the world's most formidable predators. However, these big cats are not Joe's only threat. His work also receives public backlash.
This tiger is one of 4 tigers that we took out of downtown Gary, Indiana. This was a federal seizure, and the USDA called us the day before we were supposed to take these cats and said, we're afraid to be in this neighborhood in the afternoon. Why don't you come up and spend the night in a neighboring town, and we'll go in first thing in the morning and take them. Well, the state police showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they put yellow crime scene tape around the place. We got there 10 minutes later, and there were probably 100 people on the streets ready to throw beer bottles at us. So it was an interesting morning. He had 3 of them in the back room of his tattoo parlor, and this one was out in the parking lot behind the tattoo parlor. Look at his claws now. See those claws? Children. These guys came here when they were 6 months old. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service asked us to go to New York and take a leopard, which we did. And as we took the leopard, they told the guy, we're not going to prosecute on this, don't do it again. He must have been on the phone buying these leopards before we got all the way out of his driveway. And 6 months later, after his wife escaped from being chained and beaten in the basement stairs, she went to the police, and the police came back and found 2 leopards and 4 kids. So we went out and got these 2 leopards.
But for Joe and his team, the risks are worth it. To see these magnificent, powerful creatures given a second chance at life.
This tiger came from Branson, Missouri, where he was in a magic theater, where they cleaned his cage every day with bleach. Didn't particularly bother to rinse the bleach off.
In many cases, the effects of long-term neglect continue to manifest themselves even years later.
He had bleach burns on all of his feet. He could barely stand up. See how he still holds that 1 foot up?
Sebastian the tiger also arrived in a poor condition. A detached retina meant he was in constant pain and in need of an urgent operation. He is just one of 25 of Joe's rescued tigers that have required surgery on their eyes. While Joe dedicates his time and money to providing medical attention to those animals who need it, fortunately, not all of them arrive badly neglected. One of Joe's charges still has a special place in the heart of one Ohio State trooper and his wife.
She came from an Ohio State trooper who had encountered her as a sick and injured cub. And then he took her home, and he and his wife nursed this animal back to health and kept her for 9 years. Ohio was one of the states that had no regulations about the keeping of wild animals. And then Ohio passed some incredibly knee-jerk regulations. And as a result of those regulations, this state patrolman was forced to give this animal up.
On October 18, 2011, Ohio resident Terry Thompson let loose his vast collection of exotic animals in the streets of Zanesville. 56 animals, including black bears, mountain lions, Bengal tigers, wolves, and leopards roam the streets, terrifying residents. Shortly after, state legislation was changed, making the private ownership of wild animals and restricted snakes increasingly difficult.
Even before I came into the legislature, there were some issues at hand with wild animals. You know, they got talked about, but then after a couple months, it kind of went away. We wanted to make more than just a motion with this. We wanted to actually implement something and get something moving. And when we looked at this legislation, we wanted to be different than any other state. Everyone said, well, look at the other states and look what they're doing around you. We didn't want to do it that way. We wanted to make this Ohio, and we were going to stand and make it Ohio law. And that's how we wanted to do it. We didn't want to base any of the legislation off what other states were doing.
We went over to get the cat. He lived way out in the country. We had a hard time finding him. When we finally found the house, there was a state police car out in front, and I thought, we're too late, there's been trouble. But as it turned out, he was the owner. Of all the cats that we have here that had been privately owned, this officer and his wife are the only people who come to visit. And they come every few months. Considering the number of cougars in this country, the number of people who are hurt or killed by cougars is minuscule. You have to really trigger one of these animals to come after you. Most people that are attacked by cougars don't know there's a cougar there. I mean, if you're jogging down a mountain trail or mountain biking, you can go by one and trigger all of their chase instincts, and they will chase you.
While many of these owners have good intentions, according to Joe, a lack of understanding about how to properly care for the wild animals often results in mistreatment and neglect.
You know, there are people who have these animals, people in private hands, who take incredibly good care of them. And I'm not against that. I'm against poor care. I'm against incompetent ownership. Indiana, I think, has some pretty reasonable state regulations. If you can acquire one of these animals legally and you can jump through some hoops, you can get a permit to keep one in Indiana. So, you know, in that regard, we're certainly not in favor of seeing them, you know, for sale in your local pet store. But there are people that take good care of them, and I'm not in favor of seeing them taken away from them either. We're making a difference for one animal at a time. We're not making a political statement. We're not saying that people should or should not have these animals. We're saying that this is an animal who is in trouble. This is an animal that has been mistreated. This is an animal whose life is endangered. And we will step forward and do what we can do to save that animal. You know, we will go wherever they are to get them. We will bring them back here. We will make whatever medical technology is at our disposal available to them, and we will see that they have a safe place to stay for the rest of their life.
You will get hurt. Are they gonna kill you? No, they're not gonna kill you, but they're gonna hurt you. They will scratch you up pretty bad.
Val Mahler is crazy about bobcats. Since opening the National Bobcat Rescue and Research Center in 2008, her life has been devoted to protecting and studying the often misunderstood predator.
I've worked in the animal business my entire life. I've been a wildlife biologist, moved out here to do something completely different, and fell into bobcats because that was what was booming at the time that there was no one else out here. I have not met a more intelligent, compassionate, emotional animal in my entire life. Bobcats, in comparison to their body size, have the largest brain of any of the felines. It doesn't matter if it's wild or if it's one that's been raised in captivity. They all have this deep emotional bond with each other or with their human people. If they're a pet, they develop a deep emotional bond.
Val's bobcats have developed this bond and show their affection by rubbing their glands on her and marking their scent.
You're gonna squish me. You're gonna squish me.
Headbutting and mouth-to-mouth contact are also believed to be the ultimate displays of affection.
You're fat. You're fat boy.
No. Normally the difference in the marking and the affection, she will rub her head up against like this. This is more of affection, and then she'll lick my nose a lot and hold it with her teeth. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's Dalton. That's Dalton, isn't it? Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I know.
Despite their friendly appearance, Val knows that the best place for these predators is out in the wild.
Bobcats really do need to live in the wild. The reality is a bobcat is a wild cat, F0, they are wild. And so to put a wild animal, even if it's affectionate, even if it loves you as a cub, to put it into a pet environment is really just, it's just not, I don't know, but it's not realistic. They are going to tear your house up. They can't be a house pet. If you are going to keep them as a pet, which we never condone, they need to be kept in large cages. You need to have the funding to be able to feed them every day. They're an obligate carnivore. They have to be fed meat. If you go to the grocery store and buy food, you have to use supplements to supplement that so it gives them the appropriate minerals and vitamins. So understanding what kind of animal they are, what the responsibility is to them as an emotional animal, that you cannot just leave, you can't go on a vacation and leave them behind.
Val's bobcats remain highly territorial, and their unpredictable and ultimately wild nature make even the calmest of bobcats a dangerous choice of pet.
Bobcats can be territorial. They can become food aggressive. When they have food that they want, that they think you might get from them, or when they have your phone or your keys and you want them, they're gonna hurt you. They have the ability to hurt. Oh, I'm so sorry. You okay?
That startled me.
Yeah.
Even our camera crew fell prey to these wild animals' advances.
If you're down at the same level with them, or if they're up at eye level on a fence, the first thing they're going to do is jump at you, and they will pat you really quickly with their feet. They just go pop, 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 and your face will bleed a lot. So it's a warning. If you cross that line a second time, then that's when they use teeth, and teeth is where that begins to get more dangerous. Oh, it's my nose. It's my nose. I love them.
Bobcats have been known to attack household pets, including rabbits, cats, and dogs.
They're great hairdressers.
Even animal lover Val, who has around 50 animals living in her house, won't let the cats roam freely.
I would absolutely not keep a bobcat running around my house. To me, that would be insane. I have over 70 on the property. I have my choice of every personality and every, the extremes, one end to the other, from the sweetest to the craziest. And there's not one on this property that I would comfortably put into my house.
Bobcats are nocturnal and primarily hunt under the cover of night. With a diet consisting of small and medium-sized mammals, this fierce predator will first stalk its prey before striking with razor-sharp precision, cutting the spinal cord of its unsuspecting victim. Val considers that the urbanization of traditional rural areas has, in fact, provided an almost ideal hunting ground for the bobcat. The planting of domestic shrubs, trees, and lawns has increased rabbit, bird, mice, and squirrel populations, all of which are the perfect bobcat prey. Bobcats are also known to kill prey much bigger than themselves, and while they often hunt by stealth, they can deliver a death blow with a leaping pounce that can cover 10 feet.
That's two. What are you doing? He wants the toy.
Their reputation for being vicious and predatory hunters has made bobcat trapping commonplace in the United States.
As we know, their environment is dwindling. They're preyed upon, they're killed. So it's not the most friendly place for them outside of the borders or the safe walls of private ownership or animal company ownership.
Bobcats are common throughout North America and are found in a range of diverse habitats. They adapt well to many different living conditions and can be found in forests, swamps, and deserts. In the last 10 years, their urban population has also increased significantly.
When we talk about an urban bobcat, we're talking about an animal that has adapted to live in the urban environment. There are 12 and questionably 13 subspecies of bobcats. The science is still outstanding on it. The smallest of the subspecies are down here south in Texas along the southern borders and in Mexico. And as you go north, they get larger. We have been doing the science on bobcats here for 20 years. We have learned more about them in the past 20 years, probably than anybody has ever known about them. A lot of interesting things went on, particularly, again, with the urban bobcats, because they're almost a new species. They're a completely different animal than the rural bobcats. They can't stand it. They smell like other cats. I know. It's a matriarchal society in the urban environment. The girls are in charge. The boys generally are really submissive to them. When you see two bobcats fighting, it's largely the females.
Bobcats live a solitary lifestyle, only interacting with others of their kind during breeding season each winter. They are territorial, and run-ins at the wrong time of year are often violent. Even bobcats that have become pets remain stealthy hunters and premeditate every move they make. Val is taking a risk every time she interacts with these highly intelligent hunters. Yet she wants nothing more than to see the bobcat population thrive and survive.
Yes, there are lots of bobcats in America today. There are. And in 20 years, I think there's every likelihood that we could lose all of them due to inbreeding and genetic issues and disease, and it could take out both the urban and the rural cats. So I think that our work here is important, understanding them before this happens, and being ready for it when it does happen is going to be a very important part of what we do.